conversations. Let's have real conversations.
Get ready to stir it up.
Life events and everything in between. Let's go.
Get ready to stir it up.
No capping. If guests got you covered right up.
Get ready to stir it up. Stir it up.
Come on.
Get ready to stir it up.
Hello everyone, welcome to Stir It Up. Today I have an all-time favorite guest, Seth Asafo. Welcome, Seth.
Thank you very much, Ikuya.
And we're going to be talking about why people lie. You ready?
Very much.
Good. So just to kind of set the stage context, I have three things to say. The first one is strict parents raise the best liars. The second thing I have to say is it takes courage to be honest, and that's something from Peter Courage. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to talk about is that we are living in a world today where there are a lot of people who are living lives that are not entirely honest and sincere. And so we thought this would be like a really, really good conversation to have to understand the motivations, the drivers, and what we could begin to kind of do to change the needle.
Absolutely.
Initial thoughts before I dig into my questions.
I mean, there's something that caught my attention. The very first thing where you say that strict parents make up the best liars. There is a lot of truth to it, okay. From an evolutionary standpoint, which is to say that human beings want some level of autonomy, some level of freedom. And as a survival need, you have to be able to please your parents in order for them to let you live your life. So over time, it's like your brain evolves to be able to do what they want in order for you to feel okay.
Got it.
And that's why I seem to resonate very much with the strict parents make the best, will bring up the best liars.
Because you need to find ways to please them and ways for you yourself to also do what you want to do.
Even
so you learn to hide it.
Yes, even when you don't entirely agree with what they do, you'll still accept it. But that would be a lie of some sort.
Yes. Okay. So, the big question. And it's in three parts. So why do people lie? Mm-hmm. One, to themselves, to others, and about others. So you know how we do. Rattling tables and shaking dining tables.
Well, let's start by looking at what a lie is.
Okay,
I'm fine. So, I simply would say a lie is anything that's untrue.
Okay.
So once it's not true, it's a lie.
Okay.
Now, interestingly, the research tells us that everybody lies.
True.
In fact, everybody would spin maybe up to about 5 lies in a day for the most noble person. So that is something that exists.
Can I give an example?
Yes.
It's like you asking me, how are you doing? And I say, I'm fine. But I'm having a shitty day. That's a lie.
That is a lie. But if I ask you how you're doing, you say I'm fine, and it's just one of those automatic responses, that wouldn't be considered a lie.
It wouldn't?
Because it's not that it's not true. It's just a response. So there's some level of neutrality, that's in the mix there.
But I kind of feel it might not be my intent is not to deceive you, but my intent is to be private, right? I'm trying to keep my reality to myself.
And you've just hammered on something extremely important, the intent.
Okay.
So when they categorize lies, they always talk about the fact that the intent is what determines whether, a lie is a lie, absolutely.
Okay.
But there are relativist perspective where they say there's a good lie and there's a bad lie, depending on the intention that someone has as they tell that particular lie.
Go ahead.
So, let me give you this very funny example. In many men's opinions, and I'm saying this based on the interactions I have with people when I do therapy.
Yeah.
They say every time my partner asks me how am I looking, I have to basically process between, do I tell them the truth and make them feel terrible and upset with me, or do I just say, oh yeah, it's okay, knowing that that wouldn't stir up any tensions.
Yeah.
Then I ask them, is this a good lie or is it a bad lie? So there's a context issue when it comes to lying. Now, absolutely, if you look at it from the perspective of maybe religion, religion looks at lying in an absolutivist perspective, where I say, you know, like lying is sinful.
Which is where you started from, which is a lie is a lie.
A lie is a lie,
Yeah.
but there are some variations. Now, if you look at, I mean, lying is a moral issue to a great extent. And if you look at what many people talk about when they talk about morality in terms of why people follow certain rules, it might be either to avoid punishment, it might be to get reward. And for some people, it's because they feel it to be so. Okay. And so those moral issues we say are highly personalized, like they are at the apex of morality, where people can switch between all rules are good, but in this case, you can make an exception kind of ideology. So there's a subjective twist to it.
Absolutely.
Now, why do people lie to themselves?
Before you go to why do people lie, you were in the middle of saying something and I gave you the example. So you were defining what a lie was. And you were saying that even the most upright of people lie up to 5 times a day. Do you want to finish that thought?
So it comes to say that we all lie. And from an evolutionary standpoint, there's a lot of research that actually points to the fact that we had to learn how to lie in order to survive.
How so?
So if you look at lying, there's an individual basis to lying, and then there's a social basis to lying. Now, human beings are hardwired to connect, okay? And connection is based on a certain perspective, which is my ability to read and know what would work in the setting.
Okay.
In a sense, I might play a part of a role, but I don't particularly subscribe to it. Okay. And that is lying. But
so I don't want to get married, but society requires me to get married, and so I just get into it.
Yes, that would be some form of lie.
Okay, carry on.
That would be some form of lie. So there are many structures that show actually that people who have evolved being able to, let me even start by saying that, you know that children lie.
Yes.
And say babies even lie from that age, where they cry just to, you know, test the waters kind of thing. But, you know, we always say, well, it's their way of communicating.
Yeah.
Now, what we understand when it comes to lying is you must first be able to process the consequence. You must be able to process how it makes the other person feel or what reactions they would have in order to be able to tell a lie. And don't forget, your ability to do that is what makes your lie probable or plausible. Okay. So when somebody is trying to lie, we say they have to develop what you call a theory of mind, which is the concept to be able to read other people's explanations. So in children, we say their ability to lie actually will develop around after age 5, when they've started to build a sense of theory of mind, where they can understand from other people's perspective, or else then that lie wouldn't work. Now, there are biological underpinnings to lying also.
Okay.
And some of these come to, I'll bring a sharp example of if you look at people who are on the autistic spectrum, okay? Their inability to read social language may sometimes make them, you say they are so blunt.
Yes.
So if you ask them, how am I looking? Today you don't look good. You look, and socially, that's not something
it's not acceptable.
Exactly. So you see, it's almost as if there are certain lies that are justified. Now, in that biological sequence, their bluntness gives evidence to the fact that without the necessary development of certain structures within the brain, it's difficult for us to make a lie.
Right. Yeah.
You need a lot of mental resources to be able to tell a lie in the first place.
Okay.
The human brain struggles to lie.
It does?
It does.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
So
We've not reached my question one, though. Can you imagine? We've not reached my question one, though. And yes, go on.
so the human brain struggles to lie. It gets easier with repeated action.
So it's like you practice it, so it becomes almost part of
It's
you.
a muscle. The
You build
brain,
it.
the human brain is a muscle.
Yes.
Every behavior, you either grow the muscle or you make the muscle lean. Now, there is a structure in the brain you call the amygdala, which is also implicated in fear. So usually when you go into fear, your amygdala basically acting. Now, in lying, what they realize is when you tell a lie the first time, that feeling of I've done something wrong,
The discomfort.
the discomfort you feel is actually from your amygdala. Like it's reacting like, no, this is incongruent with what we feel. Now, look at many lie detector tests. What do they operate on? Physiological reactions or your arousal. So when people tell lies, they notice their heart rate might spike and so many other characteristics. But the more you lie, the more the amygdala is desensitized to that negative feeling. So then you become numb.
Got it.
So this is the biological basis that may explain lying, and also the fact that people have had to evolve to be good at lying and also recognizing lying for a survival ability.
Okay. So why do people lie? To themselves, to others, about others?
There are a myriad of reasons.
Okay.
And I won't isolate them as to themselves, to others, or about others, because they seem to cut across. I mean, if you take why somebody may lie, they might lie to feel accepted.
Got it.
Because if they tell a certain kind of story, then the people around them would, accept them for that matter. And it's to them and to others equally,
Yes.
okay? Some people might lie because they are uncomfortable with themselves.
Understood.
Okay, so I remember we had a friend who, he lied to us so much that he told this lie which was interesting. We were all talking about stunting. Those days you used to ride a lot of bicycles, and we're talking about how we used to stunt on the bicycle. And then he said, as for him, he's so good with driving to the point that if he needs to make a stunt, to do a circle, like we say, he open the door and put one leg down. Because that's what we do with bicycles.
Yes.
But what about the car? And the person said it without even recognizing that, you open the door, put one leg down, and use that as a pivot to turn the car around. That's how bad it was. Now, some people lie to avoid things like shame, because it's so uncomfortable to experience a certain thing if the truth comes out. And then some people lie to make themselves feel good as part of a connection, to get certain rewards that they might not ordinarily get if they were telling the truth. So there are a whole fruit bowl of things. And some people lie as a defense mechanism.
Okay. I want to talk a bit about lying to preserve your image. Tell me a bit more about that.
So this is the thing. The human brain does multiple futuristic calculations. So whenever you're presented with a situation, your brain will paint a picture of what it would look like.
Yeah.
Truth of the matter is, most of the time, those calculations are all wrong.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me.
So what you anticipate will happen is usually not what happens.
Give me an example.
So, say, let me use somebody. There was a time where there was a video that was leaked about two prominent people's children, having sexual relations in a car. Okay? Now, prior to the release of that video, I'm sure that they all felt, my life is over.
Yeah.
I can never do this again. I'm destroyed. Okay, it's past. Nobody really remembers it. If I'm not talking about it, you might not even remember. So the reason I would lie to prevent something like that is my brain is exaggerating, it's catastrophizing. Yes, there's going to be some level of discomfort, but it's not as eternal as many people think, first
Yeah.
of all. And it's always not also about what you perceive the other people or those who are implicated by that lie, their reaction would be.
Be.
So I'm trying to protect me
Yeah.
by lying
Yeah.
because I anticipate that the consequences of the lie are more
It's more magnified, like you said,
the catastrophized
Yeah.
is more magnified than actually would be.
Okay. Because we forget about it in a couple of months.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard often when people talk about, I tell a lie to protect you. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
It happens a lot, and it's a slippery slope.
It's a what?
It's a slippery slope because
Pardon?
you see, the reason it's a slippery slope is like I explained earlier, that you never know what the person's reactions would be, although your mind will try to create and think about what their reactions would be like. Now, in the short term, it always looks like do it now because it's better. In the long term, you realize that it might not have been worth it, except nobody finds out.
Yeah.
So people would say, yes, I lie to protect you. And it depends on whether it's like sometimes they code it as a normal lie as compared to a more sophisticated or major lie. And you say normal lies are, oh, how does this dress look on me? It's not a big deal, like many people will say. After all, it won't kill anybody, it won't damage. Oh, it's good. You go to your party and you come back and that's it. That's kind of a normal lie. But when it borders on things more significant, like maybe in a committed relationship or a marriage, someone goes and has a child, or the husband has a child out of the marriage, or the child they have
is not the
not the man's. Then
do you know an interesting statistic?
what? Oh yes, I saw that.
70% of firstborn children in Ghana do not belong to the man.
So they say.
So they say.
Yes. So
Keep
they say.
moving.
So, so if you look at, these two, one seems to have maybe even no ramification.
Yes.
The other, of course, has many other ramifications,
Yeah.
which are both immediate and equally prolonged.
Yes.
Now, if you are to make a comparison between these two,
Yes.
you might say, I was trying to protect her because if I tell her or if I tell him, he'll be devastated, he'll be, all of that. Now, if you drag them along and then they find out, the same damage would have been done anyway.
I have a theory.
And perhaps even more sophisticated or even more profound in the process.
So I have a theory. You dear, you're just walking into my walls left, right, and center. So I was having a conversation with a lady, a friend of mine called Nefi. And I was saying to her that in relationships, I think that being honest is very important. So I was giving an example of a gentleman who I was having a conversation with who had said, oh, right now in my life, I'm not willing to promise anyone monogamy. And when he said that, I was just so proud of him, right? And I was proud because it could be that it was a strategy so that if he goes and messes around, it's like, yeah, but I told you I wasn't going to do that. But the courage to say something like that, for me, is admirable. Because what it does for me, if, for example, you were trying to proposition me, it tells me that, oh, I choose whether I want to participate in a relationship with you or not, right? And if I make that choice, I know that there could be 6 other people, right? And then I make that choice. But if you do not tell me that up front, what then happens is that you're stealing from me, right? You're stealing you're stealing my ability to make an informed decision from me. And I think that's very unfair. And she then came up with the fact that lying is stealing.
Yeah.
Right? And it sounded very far-winded, right? Thoughts?
It is. I mean, stealing is taking something away from somebody
Okay.
without their permission.
Agreed.
So, in a sense,
could
literally,
be-
it makes sense. You're taking, I mean, it could be taking the whole thing or even a part of it. But the fact that you rip away their ability to make a choice is problematic. And that is stealing. So you see, people may look at the end.
Yes.
Others people will look at it from, it's my duty,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yes.
So I'm telling you this. And, you know, the person who says, I can't promise monogamy, that's disclaimer alert.
It's and I like that disclaimer. Whether it's a strategy or it's just a disclaimer, I like it.
It allows you to make a decision
Yes.
based on the facts.
Yes.
So you see, sometimes the challenge is when you lie to people, you allow them to make decisions based on the lie.
Exactly.
And then when they finally find out, even if they don't find out,
when they collide with the truth in the future.
the consequences that come after, you complain, but why? Forgetting that
Choices have been
they
made.
had made a choice based on the lie.
Yes.
So, and this is something I would like to talk about in general, to say that a lot of the times when people have challenges, especially interpersonal, whether it's a romantic relationship or career relationship, you know, those kinds of things, the biggest issue is that they have a foundational problem.
Yes.
And it's action and reaction, action and reaction. So when it's time to do the problem solving, they are solving the problem by dealing with the branches.
With the reactions.
The branches of the problem when they should be dealing with the stem.
Got it.
So if you tell me a lie and I react to it and you react to it, the problems that are created are usually removed away from why it happened, that there
root.
was a lie.
Yeah.
And we try to do, but you did this, and we're not focused on the main premise, which is the lie.
Got it. Got it. An example that I was given to someone else in relation to this conversation was, if I come to you and let's say, for example, I wanted to buy a house and you're going to sell this house to me, and let's say that there were issues with the land, and you know there were issues with the land, and there's like a 3% chance that the land could belong to someone else, and you don't tell me that. And I spend $500,000 buying the property based on advice from someone I trust, right? That is a lie, because you've withheld information from me that if I had that information, I probably wouldn't have spent the money. If I was going to make an investment and you had information, it was a very, very small probability, maybe 2%, and you're saying that, oh, it's negligible, so it won't happen. So that I believe that if you're going to give me even 100,000 cedis to make an investment, you want to have all the facts.
Absolutely.
Right? So whether it's omission, whether it's intentional, whether it's you shouldn't be taking that decision away from somebody. You should be telling the person everything so the person can make a decision. Because here you've stolen money from the person eventually.
Yeah.
Because the person could lose their money. But you've also stolen the ability to make the choice for what they want.
If you take choice away from somebody,
Yeah.
whatever actions that they demonstrate or exhibit, you should take
The consequences.
consequence for it too. Because we are active information processors, and we process and engage with the world based on the evidence or the information that we have. So if, for example, I'm attracted to somebody and I go and I present myself as a different persona,
Yeah.
and then they like that persona.
You're the one who runs all of Kolebu.
You know, even that one is small. In
Which
fact,
one do you want?
the whole of Ghana. And then they start to have maybe some feelings to it. And people will say they are, what do you call, material in nature. No, not absolutely.
Yes.
You have given them a certain persona, and they like that persona.
Yes.
And don't take the choice away. People make choices because we have that right to make the choices.
Understood.
So if you fake something for somebody, in as much as you say they didn't do their due diligence, naturally, we are people who are supposed to be trusting. You give the benefit of the doubt. And that's an important thing. Yeah. Now, let me give you this context. In the brain, people who tend to lie a lot, they tend to have a lot of what you call white matter. So in the brain, there are two kinds of matter: gray matter and white matter.
Please, what does the gray matter do? What does the white matter
So
do?
the white matter normally makes connections between different portions of the brain. So, you know, it connects between like the emotional side and the analytical side and the memory side. Like it does these connections. And now, if you look at what a lie is, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember it.
Yes.
But if you tell a lie, it's a high cognitive process. You need to hold things in constant, have to remember the lie in order to keep it going. And plus, you tell one lie, you have to tell several other lies. So it becomes a whole hydra where you have to keep doing, you know, that same.
Full hydra. Multi.
On the other side, the gray matter does a lot of critical thinking. So if I come to you and I lie to you today, you might believe me, because naturally, why shouldn't you believe me? Okay. Now, people who lie have a lot more of white matter. So they make connections and they're able to look at you and process and profile you quickly in order to give you a lie. However, with time, because human beings consistently adapt, you start to see through what? Their lies. The gray matter for people who lie is also not as much as for people who are honest. So the sophistication...
What does gray matter do?
The gray matter allows you to make critical decisions, like be able to analyze and think and things like that, okay? So,
and white matter is for connections.
It makes connections between different portions of the brain. So I can make the connection to know, okay, she's a calm person, because I've read that your emotional side.
Yes.
And then she likes this kind of logic. So once I put those things together, I'm quick at doing it because I lie a lot. Now, the research tells us that it's about 25% more white matter for people who tend to lie significantly. So they start doing this. And then naturally, you take the first 2, 3, 4, but you have more gray matter.
So more
as
analytical.
You critically analyze them, you start to notice, no,
it's not
these
adding up.
things
It's not
aren't
matching.
adding up. Now, not forgetting, on the other side is that people who tend to lie a lot also have limited, like the amount of gray matter, which is for critical thinking, is not entirely as much as compared to us. So their lies lose sophistication. They become porous. And once you start to see through them, then you start to say, no, this doesn't make sense. So people who tend to lie a lot, they'll start great, but then at the end, everybody sees through it.
And they themselves do not realize that their lies have do they realize it?
No, that's what I was explaining, like as a muscle. You work it so much, you start to live a lie. You become the lie. And it's difficult that sometimes people don't even see it. Now, that brings us to a significant classification of lies that we call pathological lies. Okay. Now, we say that in many lies, there's an intent. For pathological lies, there's no intent.
It's just line for line.
Compulsive lying. So even things that shouldn't be lied about are still lied about. And there are many mental health implications. So it can be a symptom of some very significant mental health challenges. So if you look at a lot of the personality issues, people lie a lot, like in borderline and then histrionic personality. They tend to lie a lot. And most of the time, these lies could have been done without. So the pathological lying seems to be very different from what we say. Let me use the word reservedly, normal lie.
Normal line to protect myself, to protect you, to hide my feelings. Got it. Okay.
So you can work the brain so much that you become the lie. You live the lie and you believe the lie so much that it's your reality. You know, just to piggyback on what I said about choice. If you take choice away from someone, you're manipulating them. And so if you look at a lot of people that lie a lot, they also lie to manipulate. And that's to gain an advantage over another person. And that's something very significant that we need to observe or highlight when it comes to lying.
So tell us a little bit about manipulation, right? So who's a manipulator? Just a little bit about that.
You see, literally from the word manipulate is to change or, move things around in a way just to maybe get a better view or something, literally. But when it comes to human interactions, you manipulate someone because you want to get a certain benefit from them.
Or outcome.
So you need something from them, but you don't want to go the route, which is the coming through the front door.
The direct.
You don't come in through the
But
front
why
door.
wouldn't you come in through the front door?
And those comes with the issues of perception. You perceive that approach wouldn't get the result that you're looking for.
Is that always the truth? No.
That's what I'm saying. It's perceived.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not factual. You perceive it wouldn't give you that benefit. Let me give you this example. Let's say that I ask you for a loan and you do give me the loan and I'm not able to pay, but I still need another loan. There's no way I'm coming in through the front door and saying,
I need another loan.
I probably call you and say, and this happened, like a real dramatic something that would push your emotions for you to offer to help. That's manipulation.
Yes.
And it's also based in lying.
So are there people who tell a lie and that's why initially I broke it down into to others, to themselves, and about others, right? Because I find that for you to continue to perpetuate a lie or to continue to tell lies, you yourself need to believe it.
Exactly. And they do believe it. Now, good. I mean, this brings to another context. You see, when I made that, when I gave the explanation about gray matter and white matter, so what happens is the limited amount of gray matter means that at some point it becomes even difficult to analyze or break down the lie. Okay. You're not analytical enough.
Got it.
And so you believe the lie to be true. Similarly, the part of the brain that is empathetic to look at how it impacts others is not even there.
Yeah.
It loses sensitivity. So then you believe that anything else is another person's fault. And even when you do lie to them, it is not your fault.
They made you lie.
Or what you are saying is true. They are just taking it out of context.
A lie. Let's go a bit into motive.
Okay.
And we started talking about motive a bit. Is motive at the heart of a lie? I didn't intend to hurt you. I did this to protect myself. I did this because if you knew the truth, it would kill you. A lot of the time, we hear all of these statements which presuppose that the intent of the lie, which is whether it's to withhold, omission, commission, whatever it is, was more in your best interest. Thoughts?
So before I even say that, let me say that, see, when you lie and then you're found out, your reaction immediately can either soothe or cause pain.
Okay.
So if I lie to you and then you find me out and you say it and I say, I lied, I'm sorry. It's more, it reverberates in your internals, like in your emotions to say, oh yeah, they're a liar, but they accepted it, than having to lie so many other times and, pushing people to now have to fish out to get information. Yeah. Now, intent has always been a component of understanding the motivation for someone lying. Okay. And like we said earlier, yes, people have different motives for doing that. Some are just for selfish individual benefits, whilst others suppose it to protect the other person. But that happens because of what I talked about, the cognitive process of exaggerating or over-exaggerating what might happen if the truth comes out. Classically, within our cultural system, when somebody passes on, and maybe like they have a child or someone, sometimes they say, let's not tell them now. Yes. Because at this point, we don't believe that they're in the place to have it, like they're writing an exam or they have, and then this person will keep calling to check up on their beloved. Oh, they're fine. What do you think about that? will that be a lie, or is a lie that's well-meaning, except nobody can predict beyond the lie?
So that's why I'm asking you about the motive, right? Because I do, and I do think that there are certain things that are done with the best of intentions.
Absolutely.
And so there's a motive there, right? I am cautious because I wonder, do we take into account what the person would want?
I don't think most of the time it's about. You see,
we assume
we're assuming.
what is in the person's best interest.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. This example you've given is a perfect example, right? So if it's a minor, and you say it's a 9-year-old child or it's a 16-year-old girl who's just lost her father, she's about to write her BEC exams. Giving her this information at this point in time is not the best. And so we will wait for her to write her BEC. I can see that. Do I subscribe to taking that choice away from her? A part of me is a little iffy about it, but I can see the choice to the decision to make that choice. However, if it's a 24-year-old who is in university, yes, going to write their final exam, and they've lost a parent, I think that beyond what we think as the adults around is in their best interest, I think we should also ask the question, what would they want?
You have a fair point there. Because at the end of the day, like I say, if you take choice away from somebody, whatever actions they have, if there are consequences, you are equally liable.
Yes.
So that I agree with you. The motive issue is what we think will happen is different from what actually happens.
Exactly.
And so we may be well-meaning, but unfortunately the consequences, and I always talk about the immediate and the long-term consequences. And if we start to analyze the lie based on the immediate and the long-term, maybe it might just say, you know what, a blow inevitably yours, earlier encountered, received, may save you from further wahala.
Yes. And just even to the example that you were giving, right? I mean, and you and I have talked about human beings being more resilient than we often give them credit for being.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yes, there's a loss. And yes, giving this news to a 24-year-old might be difficult. If this person already struggles from some mental health challenge, or there's, depression or something, I can see why you might take a certain position. I can see that. But if you know that the person would have wanted to know, or the person has a certain kind of relationship with the person, there's so many things that you need to take into account, I think.
See, now that you mention, you see, when, for example, we're working with people who've gone through some form of infidelity, the first point of call is put all the facts out there. If you want the other person to heal, is to say, tell them everything. And they ask you the most uncensored questions, like, where were you meeting? How often were you? What positions were you in? You think about it and you're like, it will pain him or her if I give them that information. But once you give it all to them, they're able to move past it much quicker than when
because the brain is not imagining things.
Exactly.
And creating things.
You're closing it down by telling the story. Because once you don't do so, the imagination is even more overwhelming. So in as much as the lie might be to protect, in some instances, the truth, although seemingly painful, is necessary for people.
Today, you and I, we are gelling. We are getting along very, very, very well.
Then I'll deviate very soon.
I can see you doing that. No, you see, I often think that as humans, we take a lot from people by telling lies, right? And we don't realize it because we are in self-preservation mode. But I think that there is a need to pause and think about, okay, how does this actually impact the other person? And I know we are not always as reflective. I for sure, I'm not always as reflective in that fashion all the time, right? But maybe in this conversation, we might begin to open up a small window where people realize that actually some of the people who go crazy because of the lies. Because they don't you leave their brain to wander and to just go astray and amok in a way that, in my opinion, can be very devastating.
I mean, there's a lot of truth there. So you see, like I keep saying, we're active partakers of the world.
Okay.
And so you see, when things are happening, our brains are critically analyzing.
Okay.
And as they analyze, they see a lot of inconsistencies. Now, the inconsistencies make us go mad. They basically activate your survival system.
Yes.
Saying that there is a danger that's either there or is imminent.
Yes.
Now, when these inconsistencies are activated, you now spend a lot of time trying to glean the truth.
Yes.
And that painstaking,
Exercise
in itself is more detrimental to both your physical, emotional, and psychological well-being.
Okay. We've spent some time on the problem. Let's start thinking about solutions. As we raise our children, how do we get our children to be honest? I'll tell you a bit about my experience, and I talked about it a little earlier on. So my father was gangster.
One time.
He was the strictest. He used to beat his OBGB, right? And my father used to always say he hated lies. So if you spoke the truth, he wouldn't punish you.
Awesome.
That's what he would always say. And after a while, I realized that my father, as the Americans would say, he stood on business. So if you did something, you'd be mad. But if you said, "Oh, I did it, Daddy," you realize that the man really, really wants to whack you on the head, but he wouldn't. So I quickly realized that actually speaking the truth would save me. And that was a big deal for me. And I also quickly realized that I didn't like being beaten. So I don't think that after age 10, my father ever got to beat me again. Because, Charlie, I won't put myself in the position for you to do that, right? But what him saying, "If you speak the truth, I won't hit you," did for me was it made it easier for me to come clean with him. Today, as parents, how do we, because I believe that lying, like you said, is a muscle. A lot of it starts from childhood. It starts from how we are raising our kids and so on. How can parents behave as they are raising their kids in a way that will minimize, I know eradication is next to impossible, but how can parents raise their kids in a fashion that will make them sensitive to lying so that they will not tell lies?
The first word has to do with imitation.
Okay.
So kids largely will copy everything you do.
Okay.
So if a parent isn't lying overly unnecessarily, their child will learn from them. Let me give you this example. If you do something wrong to your child, accepting that you've done it wrong and going to the child and say, "Maybe mommy didn't do this." We might not say, "I'm sorry," but you say,
Acknowledge
this is something that maybe I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
You're teaching your child a very vital lesson in life.
Okay.
Now, if my child consistently sees me lie about the most unnecessary stuff, and don't forget that sometimes this happens within parents. So, mommy or daddy does something for their child and say, "Don't tell mommy or daddy." Okay? You're teaching them how to lie.
To hide things.
To hide things. You're teaching them how to lie. And so then, why won't they do it to the master who taught them?
Yes.
So if you want your child to be honest, teach them honesty.
Yes.
Be open to them about everything.
Oh, Mr. Joe is at the gate. Oh, tell him I'm asleep. I'm not there.
You know? So these are, I mean, they seem very simple, but that's how the child learns. They learn these things, and then it becomes part of them. So the imitation is one. Now, we talk about values or value systems, and I always say there are many values the world has, but they are family values, and these values are non-negotiable, and everybody should set their family values. And these are things you communicate to your child that even if the world does A, B, C, D, in our family, we don't do this. It's a value system. Now, if you teach value systems and you ingrain honesty and not lying, regardless of how far the child goes, they remember those things because it's something that you started with them. We have an interesting statistic that tells us that children who have parents who are religious and engage in some religious practice tend to be more in tune with the social system as compared to children who don't. Just because the religious sects have a certain value system that it teaches, and then the children they follow, and it becomes part of them. It's like something that you are working. To your dad's example, people tell lies to avoid punishment or to gain rewards. So you are gaining a reward by not lying.
And also avoiding punishment. I was actually double.
At once.
Yes.
So if there are structures that, and I mean, don't get me wrong, punishment to make somebody tell the truth is not a bad thing, especially if you take it away from physical punishment. You know, time away from fun, time away from friends. Those are helpful to teach the skill. But I like the positive reinforcement, which is the moment you tell the truth, I say, you know what, I was going to do this, but just because you have told me the truth, well done. In fact, have a cookie. In addition, that would be a way of teaching it. To survive, they learn the concept of having to lie, the normal lies, so that you can get through life. But you must set a certain foundation of what is excessive and what is not.
And what's acceptable.
Yes.
So being a good example for your children, because they're mimicking your behavior, setting the values within your family system, and positive reinforcements.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, adults who are telling lies, how do you begin to change that behavior?
First of all, we must even we must even ascertain if they acknowledge the fact that they are lying or that they are liars, because like I mentioned, the more you do it, the less sensitive you become to it. And so some people actually live a lie and believe the lie. Now, if you ever want to get somebody to acknowledge their lying habit, be careful not to be combative, because you give them an escape.
Because immediately, why are you stressing me out? I'm going.
You give them an escape. So I always say, look, you find someone is lying, be very calm about it. And don't also forget that the quickest reaction to anybody being found out is usually aggressive in nature. Shouting, screaming. So, but then you also get upset. Then I walk away, and then that issue is buried. You allow the person to go on and say, I know, but what I'm saying is that why is it that you ate the food and you say you didn't eat it? Are you calling me a liar? Calm down.
Yes, I'm calling you a liar.
And that might be a good start for you to be able to help them gain that awareness. Because some people lose the awareness. They lose the awareness that what they are saying is not true. They've done it so much, it's become a part of them. You have to help them to reflect, and you have to show them, but A, B, C, D, in order for it to register in their mind that, okay, perhaps this is what is happening. Now, the other side is, a lot of people, even when they find that others are lying, they don't tell them.
Why?
Well, because it's uncomfortable sometimes to tell somebody that you're lying. So they just say, I'll protect myself. Like, since I know you are lying, me, I would dare my corner.
I won't mix
But-
my stew with your rice.
But as you do that, you make their mind believe that what they are doing is true.
Yeah.
Because, or the fact
So
that
that's almost avoiding the.
it's almost like you have a lesser mind, so they think they have outwitted you.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, once you see it, say it.
Right.
But the way you say it matters the most. Because if you approach somebody from a combative perspective,
Which goes to point one.
they're not going to be able to make the association. Now, see, we are hardwired to recognize emotions quicker than we are to recognize the logic. So if I come to you, all you say is, he's so animated. He's just angry. And everything I say is
After that, it's about the anger.
perfectly.
Correct.
But if you keep calm as you say it, the person can read your facial expression and see that you're serious. You're saying something and it makes an impression. Now, even if they flare up and move away, they'll still be thinking about what just
you said.
happened.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I say. Don't allow people to lie and then you hide it. Let me tell you this classic thing. So there are people who would maybe find messages or incriminating evidence about their friends or their partners, and then they keep it quiet, and they are hurting within themselves. And the reality is, the other person is not bothered because they don't know.
That you know.
So you're taking the tension all by yourself.
Yeah.
And that also now starts to feed into their mindset that all is well.
Well.
But you have to let it out.
Got it. So for older people, it's when you find out there's a lie or there's a habit of lying, don't be combative about it.
Yes.
Because what that helps you do is it focuses on the logic, not the emotion.
Exactly.
Allow them to reflect about the conversation you've had. And if someone lies, it's important to always point out the lie.
Point out. Now be careful also not to interrogate.
Okay.
You know, like it's like you're trying to, if you have the information, just say, I know A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Okay.
I think you're not being honest with me. Rather than
Ask questions.
trying to like, I'm going to fish out for the information.
Yeah.
So it's like you're trying to play a smart one on them.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to feel like, everybody believes they are smart.
Yeah.
So the moment you start to do that to someone, they get upset within themselves, and the reaction is almost the same.
Yes.
But you put out the facts. This is what I found out. It tells me that you're lying to me.
Yeah.
And they might deny it, which is the first and classic. And when people deny, your best bet is to say, oh, okay.
Okay.
You leave the tension with them.
Okay.
If, for example, I find out you're doing something and I tell you, and you say, never, I've never done it. Just say, oh, okay. Smile and walk away and be happy. Because then the person knows that you know.
Yeah.
And they don't know your next move.
Okay.
And they're worried, and it's sitting with them and it's eating them up.
Yeah.
And they're more likely to come and have a conversation and say, you know about the other day,
Yes.
maybe you have bits and pieces. At least it opens a platform to talk about it.
Okay. So I think our time is up. It's been a really good conversation as usual.
It's a tension conversation.
As somebody will say, you go explain tire evidence no day. It's been a good conversation, and I hope it opens perspective for people as we raise kids, as we have relationships, as we deal with our friends, and I hope it also helps someone understand why someone in their friends group or a brother or a sister behaves a certain way, and helps them navigate all of this.
In fact, just as you said that, a lot of things have just come to my mind. I want to put it out there before I forget. And it's this, you see, the different reasons why people lie shows a certain vulnerability they have.
Yeah.
And as good watchmen and women, our ability to point that out to them beyond the lie can help them to become better people.
Okay.
So if somebody is lying for approval, what it tells you is that they want to be within your circle, but they feel like they don't fit. If you're able to point out to them that, you know what, we don't need you to be
Different.
bougie just to be part of us. We'll accept you no matter what. You're giving them, like you're extending a hand to them to be able to get out of it. If somebody is lying because they feel ashamed of something they have done, your ability to say, you know what, we all make mistakes, and it's okay to accept
But how
them.
do you tell what the
That-
motivation is?
Well, it's difficult. However, if you're very, if you're, I don't want to say observant, but the more in tune you are with the person, you'll be able to glean the reasons why they are lying.
Okay.
You'll be able to understand because you're also affected by it.
Okay.
So you'll be able to tell why they are perhaps trying to lie, and you pointing out to them becomes a helpful approach for them to get past it.
Understood. I said that. Cocktails.
Tuzafi cocktail.
Let me start with cheers.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Oh yes, yes.
I could hear you having a conversation about genetics.
Yes.
What were you guys saying?
I mean, I was being asked if your genetics can implicate like lying. And I said, well, to a great extent, yes. So as so many other behaviors. However, what it does is that you have a predisposition to the behavior, and it might never manifest if you don't have exposure.
Okay. On that note, I have a predisposition to kindness. So I'm very kind. And cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming.
Yes.
You know, as the rules go, you tell me one thing that's inside. Seth is coming to just worry me over here today.
You know, sometimes I want to drink from the glass has chemicals that can mix, so it's confusing my taste buds. If I had 2 of this,
Do you want a calabash? I have calabashes downstairs.
this thing is tasting like. Is there apple here? No apple. What?
He's using colors to gauge what it is. You know, you're one of the few people who always gets it
I
right.
know, that's why I'm. But I haven't had soup today, so you see.
But you know the soup is coming, right?
Then I probably will get the second one, but this one.
Cheers. Thank you so much for coming, Seth.
Okay, today I'm confused though.
What is Apple's brother?
I forgot.